You're listening to the Survivor Sweat Podcast with Mike Buchmiller and Russell Rosenblum. If you're looking for strategy articles and just about everything Survivor, head to survivorsweat.com. Now, let's get to it.
Okay, welcome to Survivor Sweat Pod 10. My name is Mike Buchmiller. My partner in crime, Russell Rosenblum.
10 already. 10. My God. Can't believe we've done this many.
Yes. 10. Week 10 for crying out loud. Unbelievable. It's just flying by. We were last year's Jed entry. And if you've seen prior pods, Jed is dead. But it seems like nobody else will die.
Pretty much. Just us.
So after our 27-week run from last year through this year, we are now dust, and we are here to recap week 9, which back to nobody's dying.
Yep.
In this pool. The Chalkers just keep getting through week in and week out, for crying out loud.
Yep. What do we have this week? The Browns and the Saints.
Yeah,
Browns and Saints that got through with like 90% of the field or something.
Oh, incredible. Browns and Saints. Yes, of course. Browns had 53.9%. Saints had 38.1%. Yes, the Saint fans were sweating there for a second with their life on the line with David Carr. Incredible.
Derek, his brother.
Derek Carr, the brothers David. Yes. David, I think, was even worse. So, yeah, Derek Carr. Yeah, our friend, Derek Carr, The old Raider.
Yep.
So to recap last week, 48 hit the skids, 4% go down, 1,153 remain out of the 9,267 entries to start. So 87.5% of the pool has been clipped through week 8, including the 4 no picks. It's just absolutely baffling. Get a proxy, please, for crying out loud. Get a proxy. Get some insurance for no picks. I don't know. I'm hoping these individuals are okay, or maybe it's just a misclick of the button. They think they put it in, they didn't, or
it's happened. I mean, it's happened to everybody. But the reality is, the proxies, because this is what they do as a business, they're entering thousands. So they're always very careful to make sure it goes in. And as I think we talked about last week, when you had $1,000 entry and you didn't want to spend $100 in the proxy service, I sort of get it. I think you probably should, but I get it. Now your entry is worth $8,000. So what's $100? Right. But whatever, we'll see. I mean, if we're still in, I hope they don't have proxies. Easier for us to advance if they
buy some insurance for crying out loud. Heck, I'll buy the insurance for you. Jeez. So we're approximately 10% off the last year's pace. And we are moving right along here. We had 5 that entered the week with all 10 entries. They all made it through. 2 laid the wood with the Browns, all of them. And 3 decided to spread around with a combination of Browns, Saints, and Chargers. So we're starting to see some of those 10 entry individuals start to deviate and spread around. So we figured they would do that. Didn't know when. Don't really understand the strategy. But again, I would like for somebody to reach out to me and discuss it. It'd be fun to discuss.
Yeah, if somebody's listening out there that is all 10 and wants to share their thoughts, we'd love to have you on.
I know there's one that's all 10 and would like to share their entries for about 280K.
True. Oh, it's up to 280 now.
280 now. Yeah, it keeps climbing.
What I don't know is if they've had any counter offers. That would be interesting to know.
Yeah, be really interesting to know. Yeah, we'll get to that momentarily. So yes, only 48 went down. After the lock, we went on the Survivor Sweat X handle. We discussed the fact that 2 teams would command we thought 80+% was more, upwards to 90. Over 90%. We thought the Browns would be the chalk, and they were. We thought that they might reach 60%, which would have been the second time ever. They were just a tick under that, of course. And bringing up the pace were the Saints. And then after that, it was quite a drop-off with the Falcons 39 went down with the Falcons. Poor Dirty Birds there. Ravens, Chargers, Steelers, Packers, and so on. So we discussed our spots and what we thought we would do if we still had it. We would be far, far away from Baltimore, and we would most likely be away from the Saints. The teams that we would be looking at, one of them would have been the Falcons we were looking at, the Chargers.
But
Packers.
the Ravens were the ones I really wanted to play if we still had them.
Yes.
They were the ones I wanted to play right there.
Yeah, that was the one right there at front. They carried the highest EV into that week. So I believe that I mentioned on the handle, one of them would have been Baltimore if we had if we had one pick, it would have been Baltimore. If we had two picks, one would have been Baltimore. And then we would have looked at the Falcons, Chargers, Packers, and Patriots as options. 2 out of 4 of those went down. So we would have survived.
Hard to say. We would have made it through. We don't know exactly with 1 or 2. And I'm going to say this again. I know I've said it week after week. I feel like it must get old, but people don't seem to hear it. You simply, if you want to win money in this contest, you simply cannot be on the Browns or the Saints. You just can't do it last week. It doesn't make any sense. And what illustrates it is you said we lost 40 players or something, 40 entries, 50 entries. So if we continue to lose 4%, it's obviously be 4% of a smaller number. They'll be like, if that's literally all we lose, if we never get the big chunks losing, if everybody always does this, you're going to have like 800 people left. I'm going to say you could have 1,000 people left, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, sure, you'll have made money. You'll have $1,000 entry and you'll get like 10 grand. You think you're going to be able to do that 1 in 10 times to justify playing this thing? Like you came in hoping to win $9 million. If you continue to follow this strategy and get there, you're going to win 10 grand. Right. So you've got to have a different strategy when you win. You've got to try to create edge someplace. And this simply isn't, it just isn't creating edge.
Correct.
So, I mean, you're advancing and you could feel good, but you're not winning any money.
Yeah, I've engaged with a few people on the X handle on Twitter that have just been discussing survival and been discussing the frustration that nobody's going down. But when they're taking the chalk each week, there's no other options to this, It's just going to be, to your point, either 500, 800 people are going to split the spot.
Or you're going to have that big loss. You're going to have, like, metaphorically or hypothetically last week, the Browns and Saints both lose. And the people that had them cry about the bad beats, but then somebody out there actually has a chance to win a real prize. Right? It's one or the other. You can't have it both ways. You can't be taking the Browns last week and then be whining that nobody else is getting knocked out.
Correct.
You are the someone else. Sure, there's someone else got knocked out. 39 people got knocked out with the Falcons. You weren't happy with that? You want to see, 400 get knocked out? Then don't take the Browns or the Saints.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, when you 400 get knocked out, it's you.
Yeah, I'm sure they're happy with the 39 that got knocked out, but it's just it's kind of a slow bleed, and they're waiting for the big chop. But they're a part of what would be chopped.
They'll be the big chop.
They're just trying to survive and hope to get another spot, I guess.
Well, the game is called Survivor.
The game is called Survivor. This is correct.
Doesn't mean that should be the strategy. It's just what the game is called.
Yeah, speaking of survival, so Browna, who also was last year's co-champ, he had a few picks. He picked the Browns and the Saints. So he is the only defending champ that is still alive, or excuse me, the improbable repeat, because we know that there are some defending champs that are still out there. Had a few more reach out to me. Hit us up. We like to connect with you guys. It's fun to chat. And yeah, the pool is slowly bleeding along.
We should actually give Alex Brown a call and ask him if he wants to jump on, because obviously everything I'm saying is contrary to what he's been doing.
Yeah.
And last year he did win. Last year there were a number of big upsets that he clearly wasn't on.
Yeah.
Or he wouldn't have won because he only had one entry.
Mm-hmm.
So it begs the question of, does he perceive he has the same strategy this year as last year? Yeah. Or last year perhaps he just, for whatever reason, managed to dodge some of the big favorite games. Maybe he dodged them not because they were big favorites, just because he didn't like the game. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But we should give him a ring. We have spoken before.
Yeah, we'll touch base with him and see if we can bring him on the pod. That'll be fun. It'll be really, really, really fun. So that is your recap for week 9. Not a lot of carnage. Well, not really any carnage. So nothing to discuss other than, please, if you are still in the pool and you live outside of Las Vegas, well, maybe even if you live in Las Vegas.
I think to your point, it's even if you live in Las Vegas. If there's any possible way,
proxy.
I'll give you an example of maybe where you don't need the proxy. If you've got a group of 5 people, they all have access to your account. Whether you're supposed to do this, I have no idea. They're all in Vegas, not just you. And you have something in place that somebody's supposed to put the pick in by, X time. And he's going to confirm with everybody else the pick's in. If he doesn't confirm, one of the other people is logging in and putting in your pick. It's effectively like you have a friend that's a proxy, or a teammate that's a proxy, but I would have more than one of them. Because again, I was out of town last week again. I was in New Orleans. I've been out of town 5 of the last 6 weekends. I think I haven't been here. You're here, right? Now imagine I'm out of town and, I don't tell you, although you usually know I'm out of town, but something happens and you got to go up to Utah. You have some family up there, right? And it's an emergency and you're not thinking about this. You just leave on Saturday and you're like, I got to go to Utah. And then you're sitting there, or Friday, and you're sitting there on Saturday morning going, oh no, what do I do now? It really can happen. And by the time you realize it, it could just be too late.
No,
the proxies will always be there because, that's what they do. It's literally a company. They're just entering picks.
Yeah, and we've actually even discussed, even when I'm the only one in town, and there was a time I had a tennis match on Saturday.
Correct.
And I told you when I was going to be off the court. And I said, if you didn't hear from me at that point, either A, I dropped dead on the court, or I got hit by a bus or something to that effect. But hey, the pick has to get in.
So pick has to get in.
At this point, send it to somebody else.
Exactly. And so, you all gotta take care and think about that stuff, or don't. And one thing I know, Mike, you usually follow this stuff closer than me. Do you remember, and I know Jeff Benson noted it last year, or noted it earlier this year, what the latest week is they still have had no picks? I think this is pretty deep to have 4 no picks. The first few weeks, it's not that uncommon. This is pretty deep.
Yeah, this is deep. I'm not 100% sure. I don't believe he's mentioned it.
He did once. I'll go back and dig, or I'll ask him. I think he'll tell us. And also curious, it's when, also not just one, like one can happen, but if it's 4 that were different people, that's even more unusual to be this late. If it was 4 that was the same entry, it's even more disappointing. It's, a lot of money in value, but it would be less surprising. It's one person that just didn't get him in. That's
actually a really good point. Yeah. If he's mentioned it, I can't recall, but I know.
I think it was on his Twitter feed somewhere, but
yeah, I know on the show on Friday when they air it, man, they just shake their head. It's a big deal, for crying out loud, at being this late in the game, for sure.
Yep. And it's not something Circa wants. They don't make juice on this. They want as many contest entrants in here and give them the best chance to win. All right.
Yeah, they definitely don't want this. All right. Well, that was your recap for week 9. Take a quick break and we'll be back to tee it up for you for week 10.
Yes, sir.
Time for a message from our sponsor. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with the Survivor Sweat Podcast.
If you live out of state but want to enter any of the biggest football handicapping contests in Las Vegas, you've come to the right place. Football Proxy is the most professional proxy service in Las Vegas and can serve as your trusted proxy to enter your picks each week for the Super Contest, Circa Sports Millions, or Circa Survivor contests. What makes Football Proxy different from other proxies? Well, like other proxies, we have late selection deadlines and an easy-to-use web portal to submit your picks each week. But, unlike other proxies, we allow our customers to change their picks anytime before the pick deadline, which is crucial when gathering last-minute information. Ask another proxy if they allow you to make changes to your picks and see their reaction. That's what makes us the top-rated proxy service in Las Vegas. To get started, fill out the contact form and a representative will contact you to answer any questions and schedule an appointment. Then book your trip to Las Vegas and meet us at the designated casino to get signed up. Once the season starts, sweat the action all season long with your picks. Schedule an appointment today and compete against the world's best for your chance at millions.
All right, let's look ahead to week 10 and see what our participants are looking at for this week. Wow, what an interesting week. So the huge favorite here is the Dallas Cowboys playing.
This is actually going to be a very interesting week. Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be crazy. This is going to be nuts. So the Cowboys come in at 16.5-point favorites versus the Giants, who are playing with a quarterback that is just not up to par. Waller's out. They got offensive line issues. Man, this is a complete mismatch here. But yet this is the absolute pivot point, because here you got the chalk at a 90+% win rate, and they're the top Thanksgiving play. So you have to make your decision of what you're going to do right now for Thanksgiving. Do you have any Detroit Lions left? Do you have any Miami Dolphins left? What is your plan? Are you going to jump here and try to just fast forward to the following week, knowing that maybe a lot of people will be on them and burn them right here? It's going to be interesting.
And so on that point, normally if you get, it looks like upwards of, okay, now speaking not about Circa, just about Survivor in general, it looks like upwards of 40% of the field is likely to be on Dallas, of non-Circa people. And I'm going to circle back to Circa in a minute, which is why this, I think, rather interesting week. Usually with that many people on a team, your immediate equity, your EV, would drop considerably. But because Dallas is so likely to win this game at over 90%, it's actually still the highest EV of the week. Because part of the EV is not just their chances of winning, it's their chances of winning compared to how many people are taking them. Okay. For example, the second most popular team, right now, Dallas, by the way, it's like at 1.16, so 16% positive equity. The second most popular team is probably Cincinnati this week, looking to be just over 30%. And their equity is under 1. Just because even though they only have 34%, they're only, quote unquote, only 73% likely to win. It's just not enough to make up for the fact that many entrants are taking them. So again, that is not taking it. And by the way, they would rank 5th, 6th, 7th on the list for comparison for immediate equity, or for overall likelihood to take. So what's interesting here, though, is, as you alluded to before, for Circa, how many of these people are saving Dallas for Thanksgiving Day, right? So I took a quick look here, and it's, it's out there. The Team 10 availability, week 10 team availability list, right? So right now you've got 85.5% of the field has Dallas available.
Yeah.
Presumably they're all saving them for Thanksgiving, I would think. They could be saving them for this week or next week, who knows, but probably saving them for Thanksgiving. Now you've got 14.1% of the field has Miami available. And then you get to Detroit, where 44.9% of the field have Detroit available. All right. If you believe that 85% of the field has Dallas available because they're likely saving them for Thanksgiving, then you use them this week. Despite the fact that it looks like they're going to be incredibly popular, they're going to be more popular on Thanksgiving, and this is going to be an easier game. Right. So, I mean, it's rare you're going to get the bigger chalk and it's going to be less popular than it is later. Yeah. So this, of course, begs the question, do you have Miami or Detroit left? But if you don't, I don't know, then you're in kind of a tricky spot. However, it's a gutsy play. If you really think the whole field is going to end up on Dallas, you could take an underdog on Thanksgiving Day and try to win the whole pool. But I'm not going to go out there and tell you to do that right now. But I would say if you did have Miami left, if you had all three left, I would love to be holding Miami when I'd say no more than 15% of the field can take them. That's not entirely true, because you could lose large chunks of the field between now and then. And the chunks you lose didn't have Miami. Maybe you make it to the end and everybody left has Miami on Thanksgiving, so 100% take them. But you can't really know that very easily right now. So I would be trying to hold Miami right now for Thanksgiving. Yeah. And Detroit second. And at this point, I don't want to take Dallas on Thanksgiving Day, all else being equal, because everyone's going to have, it's 80%, over 80% of the field. Yeah. You'll probably have, I think you'll break 60% with Dallas on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, 85% have Dallas here. So whatever chunk doesn't take them this week, going to take them for Thanksgiving, for sure. Now you look down and Cincy has, almost everybody has them left.
Yeah, 97. So basically 100%.
Yeah, so 97%, almost everybody. The sneaky team this week, if you have them in your pocket, is Buffalo. Yeah. So Buffalo sneaks in there. I think there's only around 135 people left in the pool that actually...
Yeah, 133, 11%. You're right. That's another great spot if you have them.
And here they're sitting at 72% win rate, same as Cincy. And there's only a few teams this week with plus EV in terms of, playing them in this spot. So you got the Cowboys, you have the Bills, the Ravens, and the Seahawks. But
correct.
If you have the Ravens left at this point,
not many, but 25% more people have Baltimore than have Buffalo, about twice as many.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Dallas is a great play. Buffalo is a great play too if you have them.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo is going to have other opportunities during the year, but of course, so is Dallas. I mean, all these teams are going to
Well,
have.
looking ahead, I saw that Dallas
Dallas got a super easy schedule. They got a lot of
they're
soft
the
games.
second highest team in terms of future value in the pool, I think, behind the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, the question I would ask is how many people still have Dallas after Thanksgiving Day? I say it's under 15%. It's probably under 5%. I mean, you're either going to, if you're holding them for Thanksgiving, or you're using them this week, or you're using them next week when they're at Carolina.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're not holding them you're not going to not use them these 2 weeks, then not use them on Thanksgiving. And then you're holding them. I mean, they play Seattle in week 13. Your next best game is the week 18 in a game that may not mean anything at Washington, or week 17 at home versus Detroit. No one's going to love that spot. So I definitely think under 10% have them after Thanksgiving. So if you think they're going to be burned before Thanksgiving, use them now.
Yeah. Or, I mean, if you're sitting there with an entry and you still have Buffalo and you still have Miami, I mean, you might be able to, that might be the optimal path through here, is to avoid them altogether. Look to take Buffalo, look to take Miami, and then you have Dallas with some easy matchups after Thanksgiving where people don't have that advantage and start having to make plays that are only 60, 65%.
So you could do that, but I'll phrase it this way, and I'm somewhat indifferent which direction somebody would take on this. Mm-hmm. So this week you've got Dallas playing the Giants. Next week you've got Dallas at Carolina. Okay, pretty big favorites. This week you've got Buffalo at home versus Denver. And next week you've got Buffalo at home versus the Jets. Yeah. I mean, Buffalo has struggled versus the Jets from time to time, but I don't think this is going to be one of those times. I mean, it could be. It was last year. It burned a lot of people. But either way, I think if you're willing to not take Dallas on Thanksgiving, flip a coin, decide whether you'd rather take them this week or next week. Circa is not going to have, this is assuming you're in Circa. Again, we're talking about Thanksgiving. Circa is not going to have 44% of the field on Dallas. You're probably going to have 20%. I don't know. Maybe less. I don't know. I got to think too many people are simply holding them. I'd be very surprised if you had anywhere close to 40, but I've been wrong plenty of times before. Just ask my wife. And so next would be Cincinnati. You're going to have a lot of people on Cincinnati here. Yep. So I would, that's the other game you probably need to dodge. Mm-hmm. My guess is Cincinnati goes up from the estimates of 34% non-circa to that one could go nuts. That could get to 60 again. You could pick up almost all the Dallas people that are just moving to Cincinnati. Because you just don't have enough people with Buffalo remaining. Pittsburgh's the other theoretical sneaky pick, but I mean, I never really like to take Pitt. It's like it's sneaky for a reason. There,
the two sneaky plays here is Pitt, -3 and a hook versus the Pack. Who, I mean, they looked not great, but Pittsburgh isn't scoring at will, so they are just winning these rock fights here at home. And then the other sneaky pick, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, is the Bears. So you got the Bears on Thursday night. They're a 65% win rate, but I mean, can you really trust the Bears at home versus the Panthers? Man, I don't know.
I guess if you got 10 entries left, you can go, lay the wood on the Bears. No, you can take one or two and put them in the Bears. But the reality is, if we had 2 entries left, I'd be pushing pretty hard for us to put one on Dallas if we had these teams available. If we had Miami or Detroit available, I wouldn't need both. If we had Miami or Detroit available, I would say put one on Dallas, put one on Buffalo if we had them. Personally, we'd probably have an argument about this. Depending on what the rest of this look like, I would, if we didn't have Buffalo available, I would just put both on Dallas here and be done with it. Because I'm really not, that worried. I've got other plays for next week, and I think this will be one of the lower plays on Dallas, because you're going to have whatever number is on Dallas this week is probably going to be similar to what's on them next week. It's not going to be that different. Yeah. You're just going to have everybody else is holding them for Thanksgiving. That's going to be bigger. And then after that, what I'm going to hold them for till week 17. I'm like, that's silly. So I'm going to use Dallas here, and I would probably just use Dallas twice unless we decided that we're using Dallas twice next week instead. That would be the only reason.
So if you're one of the 10 entry individuals, are you going 6 on Cowboys, 4 on Cincy? Probably, well, not. You're avoiding Cincy. So
I'm avoiding Cincy. If I'm 10 and I have the whole world available to me, whatever, I probably go 6 on Dallas, 4 on Buffalo if I have it. something like that. Or actually, no, I might go 5-5 because I'll use Dallas next week too.
Yeah.
And then I'll flip them, right? I'll use 5 on Dallas, 5 on Buffalo. Next week, use the other 5 on Dallas, the other 5 on Buffalo, if I have them all available. If I don't have Buffalo available and I have Dallas available, if I have Dallas, Miami, and Detroit available, and I don't have Seattle, Buffalo, or Baltimore, I'm putting 8 on Dallas and 2 as a hedge on 2 other teams. Don't really know or care. I mean, I care, but it could be Chicago, Cincinnati, it could be Chicago, Detroit, New Orleans, whatever. It's just in case of the monster upset, I'm still alive. But if I had 10 entries, didn't have Buffalo or Seattle here, or Buffalo, Seattle, or Baltimore, I'm putting 8 on Dallas.
So just to be clear for the listeners, you would avoid Cincy in this spot. We would avoid Cincy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you could make an argument that if I have 10 entries and I put 8 on Dallas, 1 on Cincy, I'm still actually rooting for Cincy to lose.
Yeah.
You know, I lose 10% of my entries, but the field probably loses 50% or something of the field.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm putting an entry there, but I'm hoping it loses.
And the other sidebar to that is that Cincy has a lot of future value.
Sure.
And they're coming around, they're coming into their own. Seems like they're only going to get better. There is maybe an issue with one of their receivers this week. And the Texans are coming in pretty tough here, but I still, that's the reason to avoid them.
I don't want to forget a point you made to me last year. One could argue this applies to any team, but it does apply to some more than others. We saw this year that Cincy wasn't particularly good when Burrow wasn't sharp. I don't think anybody can say they were. I mean, they were not good, right? And now that Burrow's, you know, got his ankle, I guess, where he can run again, he's feeling good. The team is a totally different team. They look like the Super Bowl Bengals again, not like the 15-year-old Bengals, right? You mentioned it was last year. It was in the context of Mahomes, if I remember right. We were saving Kansas City, and it was, you know what? Mahomes takes one shot, and we're going to wish we used Kansas City because when they bring in, as last year was Chad Henne, I think. Do we still want to be saving Kansas City till week like 14, 15, like 16, when you could find out there's no Mahomes? And certain teams, that's going to play a much bigger role than others.
Sure.
And it's already self-evident that Cincinnati is one of those teams. They've literally proven it out in front of our eyes over the last 10 weeks. You got to see them literally with, you know, a banged up Burrow and a healthy Burrow. It didn't even have to be out, just banged up. And I'm not saying he's going to get banged up. I mean, I have no idea, but you always have a risk in the NFL that you're going to lose quarterback. Some teams, you know, they're going to drop a little bit, but not that much. Like look at the Bears. I mean, how much different are the Bears really? With, you know, it's how much different, say, are the Commanders? How much different we don't know about Green Bay, but how much different could they be? You know, like there are a lot of teams that are in New Orleans. Like, I don't know, these teams shouldn't drop that much. Minnesota will be an interesting test, right? I mean, look at Minnesota, not with Survivor in general, but the NFL in general. Look at Minnesota. You would think losing Kirk Cousins would be a massive drop off. Instead, they bring in a guy that people mocked in Arizona. The guy didn't read the playbook, as he fully acknowledged on the field. He didn't know his teammates' names. He didn't even know their names. He didn't know how to call them. He didn't know anything. And to his credit, I'm giving him a ton of credit. He admitted, I don't know anything. Explain this to me. Like, what's this mean? What's this protection mean? What's this play mean? Which is absolutely the right thing to do. He went out there and I want to be clear. They went out there and that team won that game.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Their drop-off wasn't anywhere near as steep as people would thought it would be. But again, we've already seen Cincinnati. We know that drop-off will be steep.
Yeah, and to that point, Dobbs was over there on the sideline, and they were practicing snap counts. It was incredible.
He knew absolutely nothing. Nothing. I give him all the credit in the world. It's a phenomenal performance. And I'll tell you, it makes Arizona look probably worse. That they had a quarterback that may be more competent than people thought, that, you know, they couldn't get anything done there.
Definitely give that guy props, man. He's getting in there, getting it done for sure.
And it's not like he was playing the Raiders, a whole different thing. I should say, not like he was playing the Raiders under McDaniels, like the D2.
Now the Raiders are world beaters. A few weeks too late.
We have a friend over there that works in the organization. I'm not gonna, name him. I don't know if you heard this when we were talking, when I was talking to him briefly last week. He knows We Bet Sports. He does not. He's in the organization. He will not. He doesn't do anything like that. But he said, did you guys bet in this game? And I go, we didn't touch this game. I go, I said, I can't figure this game out for the life of me. We have no coach. Giants have no team. Like, I don't know what's going to happen here. And he goes, oh, are you kidding? This was like the lock of the week. You should have seen the guys in the locker room all week. I've never seen him this motivated. Note, he tells me this after the game starts. So he's also not giving me any good information. But it seems in the organization, they were pretty riled up. They were pretty happy to jump into this game. And they looked it. This is the most motivated they looked in a long, long time.
Well, good for them. And now we don't have a chance to take them again because we are out. We are.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
All right. So there you have it for your opportunities to take Cowboys, Bills, Cincy's, Seahawks, Bears, or Pitt. So just avoid Cincy. Take some Cowboys here. If you have the Bills, that's the play.
Yep.
All right. Well, speaking of a re-entry on the Survivor Sweat marketplace, there are currently 9 single entries available for purchase, ranging between $8,800 and $30K. Those are single entries. And then, as I'd mentioned earlier, there's an all 10 option for 280 large. That's quite a number. I'm not sure we can get there.
Well, I give him credit for putting it up. Now, I'll tell you something. I'm probably skipping ahead a little bit because I don't know if it's listed here. I had a question that was asked of me. I don't think he put it up on the board. He asked me, and I told him I would address it here, even though I did give him an answer separately. Someone out of Leesburg, Virginia. I think you know who you are. And he said to me at one point, and I thought I was misunderstanding. He said, well, I would never pay, the entries were $1,000. Why would I pay $15,000 or $30,000 for an entry? Right. And then I think he saw one that was 30. He saw another one where you were only getting half the entry, but maybe it was 8 or something like that. And I was pointing out that you can't just look at what the entry cost compared to what it cost on day one. Mm-hmm. Right. It really is like right now, I would not buy the $30,000 entry. I personally don't think it's worth it. Plus, for the teams that are taken, for me, it's not worth it. But if you told me right now, par value is about 8,000 for each team. Right. Yep. If you told me par value was 50,000 and a team costs 30, you're going to have to show me they've burned everybody playable. Like, that's going to be just a phenomenal opportunity if there's almost anybody left, right? Because you can even start taking underdog. You're just picking up a lot of equity. And he said, well, I can't believe you'd be willing to spend $30,000 on one of these. I said, of course I would. You've really got to look at what's the par value on these things. Like, what's the base value, which is in this case, $8,000. And then you've got to see if you can figure out, are they worth slightly more or slightly less based on the teams that they've used? Or a lot more, or a lot less, right? Sure. But you can't just look and go, wow, 30,000 is expensive or 5,000 is cheap. Like, it's not, you're not expensive or cheap based on the actual price. You're expensive or cheap. The very first metric you have to use is what's the par value of any of these teams. Right now it's $8,000. So, after week 1, if you told me, would I buy another entry for 6,000, I'd say no. Right now, if you told me an entry was 6,000, I would probably buy it absent, really not liking who they burned. Like, they have nobody left for Thanksgiving or something, right? Sure. But you really can't just look at cheap or expensive is not based on that. So now you go to the $280,000 entry.
Yeah.
I am sure they're pricing it as a premium because you're buying all 10. I'm not really sure that's worth a premium because you have 10. I mean, you could just start buying. So assume it's 28,000 an entry, right? Par value is 8. So you're paying more than triple. If you could buy 10 other entries at 15,000 each, you should just do that. It doesn't matter. You're getting it from the same person. It makes no difference.
Good point.
Or a little bit of a difference, a little less of a headache.
And to your point, you've mentioned this in the past, is that at some point there's going to be a cross. There's going to be a value on an entry that is going to be life-changing money to somebody, and the opportunity to walk away with zada. And so, bird in hand, if you will, might be the play.
If we never have big upsets, we may never see that point this year. But assuming we do, I think when par is in the 6 figures, you're likely to start seeing it. Yeah. When par is 125,000, there are a lot of people that will take 100 or 75. I mean, there's a lot. They'll do that.
And for that, there's the make an offer on the team button. So if you feel like a entry is worth X, it's a free roll to offer it, as long as you're interested. Of course, you don't want to just waste anybody's time, but jump on there on survivorsweat.com, look at the marketplace, see what's out there. Heck, post your entry. If you maybe it gets sold, maybe you got the right teams or the right path for somebody to make it through for sure.
And I think it was pointed out to me also a couple of days ago, there was an entry being sold where it was, I mentioned it earlier, but I think they were selling 49%. So presumptively, then you don't get the voting control. I assume they still get to pick the teams, but you own roughly half the entry. I don't. So, I mean, you can always look to do that as well if you're really just looking for, excuse me, a true survivor sweat, but you don't really feel comfortable enough. If you've got the cash, but you don't feel comfortable enough making the picks, you can always look at something like that. And at the end of the day, it's just as safe as anything else. You're still going to have a contract that says what you owe. What you own, and they're still going to have to pay you based on that contract. And if they try to screw you, anybody can. I'm an attorney. I try not to practice, but what I say to people all the time, you can spend all the time in the world drafting a contract, and I have. When you sign the contract, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, contract just gets chucked in a drawer. People operate, they do things that are not literally in the contract. They literally don't follow the exact terms of the contract, and everyone's normally fine with it. It's only when you have a disagreement, you pull out the contract and you have something to point at. Sure. And you should have that, to be clear. But at the end of the day, if someone's a dishonest person, they'll always try to find a way to make life difficult on them, contract or not.
Which is another reason why to go through Survivor Sweat, is because they will have your back on that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're going to want to make sure it's enforced too, because otherwise next year, who's going to want to, participate in Survivor Sweat buying something in the marketplace? And I'll make a controversial point that I know Jeff Benson over there will disagree with, but I'm going to say it anyway. I actually think Circa is making a big mistake not signing off on these transfers. I think it's an issue. I think they should fully acknowledge it. I think they should charge a transfer fee if it's a pain in the ass, but I think that they should be involved in this. And I know they don't want to do it. They don't want any liability. They don't want anything goes wrong. They're going to go, not my fault, But at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it may not be their fault, but the PR optics are still going to land on their desk. It's going to be the same thing. I mean, I've seen this at the World Series of Poker, right? It wasn't the World Series of Poker's fault that Jamie Gold chose not to pay the person he purportedly promised to pay. I'm not going to go into the actual litigation, but at the end of the day, then you have that other person serving notice on the cage to not pay Jamie. And then the World Series, in that instance, as I understand it, they agreed to not pay. But Circa would be, you're in a box. What do? They're told not to pay. There could be pending litigation, but somebody else says, no, you don't honor those deals. Not your problem. Where's my check? I mean, I don't want to be Circa in that spot. I'd much rather be able to be Circa and say, actually, you signed this form waiving your rights. We're paying the other guy. We're done here. But that's my opinion. And I think Circa will ultimately change their mind if and when there's a problem.
Yeah.
Until then, I don't think they'll do anything differently, no matter what I say. But I do think once there's a problem, they'll change their mind. And I also think that the more you allow these transfers to happen, the more you acknowledge them, the easier you make it, the more entries there will be in the contest. Because one of the reasons people don't want to enter, sure, they love the idea of $1,000 and I'll win 9 million. They also understand, like, I may not be able to rip off 20 picks in a row, get to the end and be the only guy standing there. Yeah. And so, like, for $1,000, buy a lottery ticket. For a lottery ticket, they'll go spend $2, right? And try to win $1 billion. If they know they can make it to week 7 or whatever, week 12, whatever it is in a given year, and maybe make 100,000, and they know that going in, I think they'll be far more likely to buy that entry than they are now.
All really great points. Good points. Well, we'll see what happens in the future on that. But
I think Jeff will finally give me the first, thumbs down when they put this up on Twitter. But I'm always honest with them. So
yeah,
I think they do a great job.
Twitter beef with them.
I got no shot. He's got like an alternate Twitter ego too. I don't need to go there.
No, absolutely not. All right. Well, that's it for previewing of week 10. Hit us up on the Survivor Sweat X handle. Hit us up for some advice. If you're not quite sure where you're going this week with your picks, you can go on the discussion board, survivorsweat.com. There's a forum there for people to chat. If you're a former champ, hit us up. Let us know if you're still alive. Love to root for you. And if you have any questions for us, we might answer them on a future pod. Until next time, get your picks in and hope you survive, and hopefully it isn't too much of a survivor sweat.
Indeed. See you later.
Yep. See you next time.
Looking for survivor strategy articles? Did you lose your last entry on a survivor contest and wish you could rebuy? Check out our marketplace and you may find what you need. Head over to survivorsweat.com for all things Survivor. And we'll see you next week for the next Survivor Sweat podcast.